Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today is January 13th, and as always, we're here with a fresh dose of analysis from the other side of the political divide. We're back in the thick of things, with our usual critical eye on the latest developments in British politics. It's a time when the government's actions seem more puzzling than ever, and as the opposition, we find ourselves watching with bated breath. If you're after a no-nonsense breakdown of what's really going on, make sure to stick around, hit like, and subscribe to stay in the loop. As the stormy political climate of January deepens, the Labour Party finds itself engulfed in an internal struggle that threatens to shake the very foundations of its unity. With the growing public outcry over the grooming gang scandal, the party is under intense pressure to call for a national inquiry, but its leadership remains reluctant to act decisively. Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, has come under fire for his hesitance, with calls for justice gaining momentum from every corner of the country. As the rift within the party widens, one figure stands out as a beacon of dissent: Dan Carden, a former shadow cabinet minister, who is willing to speak out where others fear to tread. Carden's break from Starmer's stance is nothing short of dramatic. While Starmer continues to sidestep calls for a full inquiry, Carden has publicly demanded that the government and the Labour Party take a hard look at the scandal. In a recent interview, Carden voiced his frustration, his words sharp and unapologetic. "We cannot, in good conscience, remain silent on this matter any longer," Carden said, his voice rising with the intensity of his passion. "The victims of this scandal have been ignored for far too long, and it is high time that we, as a party, stand up for justice. We cannot simply sweep this under the rug as if it never happened. People are demanding answers, and it is our responsibility to provide them." Starmer, however, has not been as vocal in his support for a full inquiry. He has faced mounting pressure from both the public and members of his own party, but his response has been cautious. In his recent speeches, Starmer has treaded carefully, making vague statements about the need for accountability without committing to the robust investigation that many, including Carden, are calling for. His reluctance to fully embrace a national inquiry has been viewed by some as an attempt to protect the party's image, as well as his own political future. But in doing so, Starmer risks alienating key figures within his party, as well as the very voters who have long placed their trust in Labour. A particularly vocal critic of Starmer's approach has been Andy Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester, who has long been a prominent figure within the Labour Party. Burnham, who has often been lauded for his directness and unflinching honesty, has added his voice to the growing chorus calling for a thorough investigation. He, too, has expressed concerns about the Labour leadership's reluctance to confront the issue head-on. In cases like this, there can be no ambiguity. We must be unequivocal in our support for the victims and demand the full truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, Burnham said in a speech last week. Our duty as elected representatives is to ensure that justice is done, and that means we cannot be afraid to tackle this issue with the urgency it deserves. Despite the clear call from within his own ranks, Starmer has yet to make a decisive move. His hesitation is rooted in a complex web of political considerations. On the one hand, Starmer must navigate the delicate balance of appeasing the growing demands for an inquiry, while on the other hand, he must protect the party from the potential fallout that such an investigation could bring. The Labour Party's internal divisions have only grown more pronounced, with some members siding with Carden and Burnham, while others remain loyal to Starmer's more cautious approach. The situation is beginning to feel like a political game of chess, with each move potentially altering the course of the party's future. For many, the question is no longer whether the Labour Party should support an inquiry, but whether Starmer will be able to keep his grip on the leadership as his authority is increasingly challenged from within. There are whispers in the corridors of Westminster that some within the party are already planning for life after Starmer, should he fail to address the scandal in a way that satisfies the public's demand for accountability. As tensions continue to rise, the Labour Party is left with a stark choice. Will it be able to heal its internal divisions and present a unified front to the public, or will the party's fractured leadership only serve to further erode its credibility? And then there's the public. The people of Britain have been watching closely, and their patience is running thin. The public's demands for a national inquiry have reached a fever pitch, with grassroots organizations and concerned citizens alike demanding that justice be done. Protesters have taken to the streets, waving placards emblazoned with slogans like "Justice for the Victims" and "No More Cover UPS," while online forums are awash with impassioned calls for a reckoning. In one particularly emotional interview, a woman whose daughter was a victim of the grooming gangs shared her frustration with the lack of action. "We've been waiting for years for someone to take us seriously," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. It's time for the politicians to stop ignoring us and start listening. My daughter's life was destroyed, and so many others have suffered too. How much longer will we have to wait for justice? The pressure on Starmer and the Labour leadership is mounting, and with Carden and Burnham leading the charge, it's clear that the issue is not going away anytime soon. As the public's calls for action grow louder, the question remains: will Starmer bow to the pressure and back the inquiry, or will he continue to resist, hoping the storm will pass? In the coming days, the political landscape could shift dramatically, as the Labour Party faces one of its most significant tests in recent memory. How Starmer and his colleagues handle the crisis will have profound implications for the future of the party, and for the credibility of its leadership. If Starmer chooses to dig in his heels and maintain his cautious stance, he may find himself increasingly isolated, both within the party and in the eyes of the public. But if he takes decisive action and supports a full inquiry, he may be able to restore some of the trust that has been lost, and perhaps even emerge stronger for it. Either way, the Labour Party's response to this scandal will be a defining moment in its history. As the storm continues to swirl, one thing is certain: this political drama is far from over. The battle for justice and accountability is just beginning, and it remains to be seen how the Labour leadership will navigate the turbulent waters ahead. For now, the future of the Labour Party hangs in the balance, and the nation is watching, waiting to see what happens next. Will Starmer take the necessary steps to bring justice to the victims, or will he continue to stall, leaving the party to grapple with the consequences of its inaction? Only time will tell.